Hell yeah. Oh, look at that. Right when I get outside, look who we have here. Some Ghislaine Maxwell wannabe. Look, it's Jeffrey Epstein Jr. over here. Look, it's Jeffrey Epstein Jr. over here. Holy shit, it's windy out. Oh, but it's pretty nice, not too bad. And I'm trying to be a real person. So instead of just focusing on my victimhood, I'm focusing on enjoying my bike ride. And really my issue is trying not to be boring. So I do feel in one of those moods where I just feel like I am so boring. But I'm going to take a page from my old buddy Owen. I did this boot camp with this company called Real Social Dynamics with this guy named Owen Cook or Tyler Durton. And basically he would teach us how to pick up chicks. And he was in a book called The Game. And so there's a gangstalker. You couldn't really see him, he's just standing there. If that guy lived at that house, he has a pretty hot wife, Asian wife. And I actually adjusted my handlebars today too, which is pretty cool. I had been trying to do that for a while. There was a certain screw at the back of them that I didn't see that I had to loosen to adjust them. And so Tyler Durden was pretty cool. And basically, he said, just go up and kiss that girl. Go up and talk to that girl. And it was kind of scary at times, but it was pretty great actually. I had a pretty cool time with one girl especially who was exactly my type. And I got her to go in the cab with me to go home. And anyway, so Tyler, he said in one of his videos before I took the boot camp, and really the boot camp, you might think that's kind of sleazy, like you're gonna learn pickup. You're gonna learn, you're gonna say a neg, you insult the girl, and she's gonna feel really low self-esteem, and then she's gonna want your approval. It wasn't like that at all. It was like, just go talk to that girl, go talk to that girl, go talk to that girl. And then when you had bad energy or like good energy, he would just kind of like tell you, like, you had bad energy there. And it was pretty simple, really. It was actually so simple. And I had a lot of fun. It was really stressful though too. But then I got the hang of it. I had to break through a lot of barriers, and I got threatened and by some guy at the bar who, I was talking to his sister. And I got to meet a lot of the guys in that group who I had been watching, like Jeffy and Brad and this guy named Derek. And I didn't really care about any of them. I just wanted to meet Tyler, and I got to see what he was doing. But anyway, that's not really the point. But I did that program because my ex-girlfriend had cheated on me, and I was really upset. So I went on that program. I was like, I'm going to learn how to have more girlfriends, because clearly my girlfriend is fucking cheating on me. So fuck. What can I do? I feel like she can cheat on me easier than I can cheat on her. Like, she has an easy time just finding some new guy, and for me, I might not have the ability to cheat if I even want to. So I should learn how to do that. And so I went on that program, and it was like 3 days. Like, I took a bus to Chicago, and for a weekend, I just went around talking to girls with Tyler. It was pretty fun. And I didn't like Jeffy. He's another instructor in that group, and when it was my night to be with Jeffy, I just left, and I was like, you know, I'm just leaving. Like, I'm going back to see Tyler, and you're not like supposed to do that. Like, it's like they have like a structured program, and I was just like, you know, here's another one of them. They just stand on the street corner. You know, here's one. Now, I don't know if Tyler's gang stalked. You know, I could imagine someone in his position would be. And I feel like he'd kind of be buffered, like, by his success, by his money. He has, like, lots of money. Now, I do feel like I've surpassed Tyler. Let me just show you, too, what brighting is. So I don't know if you saw the guy standing on the sidewalk. It's probably too bright. But you can see there's another car here. This car was pulled over just a minute ago. Okay, so can you see? Now this car is pulling over. Was this the same car that was just there a minute ago? Yes. Now he's driving away. These people are... Well, you know what these people are. These people are Jeffrey Epstein's. Little Jeffrey Epstein's. The little Hitlers. And so my girlfriend cheated on me, and this is kind of a continuation of yesterday's video. So I lost my spirituality, and by age 25 I was not really spiritual. I was kind of looking at Christopher Hitchens. I was looking at anyone who knew what they were talking about, who didn't seem like a fool, who didn't seem like a hypocrite. I was just trying to find someone who seemed authentic, who had found their soul. And I hadn't really found anyone. I had found some people who came close. Timothy Leary, Ram Dass, Terrence McKenna, Alan Watts, Robert Anton Wilson. And those were the people who I found comfort in, to read their material, to listen to them, as well as Tyler. And Tyler's, I think he's a genius, and he claims that he has autism, undiagnosed autism, and I've wondered that about myself too. Perhaps because he thought it about himself and I just resonated with him so much. I mean, he has a pretty big skull, and he was just very articulate. You know, he explained things to me in a way that I kind of understood. And when we went on the boot camp, he was awesome. Like, the things he did was awesome. And so anyways, I'm with my ex-girlfriend, and I kind of feel like a loser. Like, she's cheating on me, and you know, we have an open relationship, but she keeps that secret too. And the thing, you know, and I have like one other girlfriend who kind of has like Mr. Burns body, you know, like she was a model. I have to brag. She was with a reputable company, like Giovanni or something. I don't know. It wasn't just like like she paid for her own shots or something. Like she was like a working model. She was pretty cool. You know, I didn't like the circumference of her hips, but she had giant tits on a stick kind of person, a very model-y face. And she was one of the best musicians I've actually ever heard in real life. Like, you know, I used to listen to her music on my MP3 player. And it had nothing to do with her. It wasn't like, oh, it's my friend. And, you know, she was really cool. And she was one of the people who, I've wondered if she was a gang stalker. But she was one of the people who validated me a lot. Like, she gave me sexual attention when I was shy and kind of nervous. And it kind of validated me, you know, like, oh my God, yeah, cool. Like, I was hoping for this, but I didn't really expect it. And the fact that you're just taking it like for granted that, yeah, of course this is going to happen. It makes me feel so cool, you know? And so then I told her about monogamy, how like monogamy is like totally stupid and retarded and psychopathic. And she's like, holy shit. She's like, how? She's like, I thought you were like a retard. She's like, how do you know this? And she had a boyfriend who who she loved. Her boyfriend's name was well, I don't need to tell you, but it was a weird name, and he was like a real man's man. He was like a really hot guy. He used to wash his balls in the sink. You know, like he's one of those kind of guys, like a hairy kind of like a manly guy who washes his. I think he washed his ass in the sink too, in the bathroom sink. And this girl was into some weird sex too. Like there was this one guy who she was getting spit on by. This guy would just spit on her over and over, and that was like his fetish. And you know, I just laughed when she told me that, and she felt relieved. You know, she was like, you know, I've been having to take this so seriously, like getting spit on, like it's like this guy's fetish, and it's really relieving that you just laugh at this, and you know, you kind of like break the fourth wall for this guy's spitting fetish. You know, it's like comforting. But other than her, I didn't really have any other girlfriends, and my ex-girlfriend, she had like unlimited unlimited boyfriends basically. And you know, I never really lied to my ex-girlfriend, except for one time after she cheated on me. I went to my Mr. Burns friend house, but we didn't even have sex, which, you know, a lot of times most of the time we did, but sometimes we just hung out. Like we were actually friends. And I never wanted to be her boyfriend because her hips weren't that wide. And so I went back to my girlfriend's house. This is after I had already been completely devastated by her cheating on me, because I had absolute trust in her up until she cheated on me. And she cheated on me with a guy who was like online, who she had never met before. And I'm pretty sure she did it in person too. And, you know, I know she did it in person. But anyways, so I tell her, just to make her angry, I say, yeah, I just had sex with Mr. Burns. And she's like, you fucking douchebag, fuck you. And, you know, she's like all upset. Like she had just come home with food for us. And I was gone at Mr. Burns' house. And then I get home and I'm like, yeah, I was just having sex with Mr. Burns. And she's like, oh my God, blah, blah, blah. And then after, you know, and she's not even that upset, you know. I could tell she loves it. She's like, you douchebag. Like I'm like, yeah, I'm so cool. Like I'm so fucking cool. And just to brag a little bit, you know, we had like $3,000 a month house in the center of Toronto. And, you know, like we had, like my friend and I had sex with my best friend's girlfriend, who was my roommate. And then he had another girlfriend who I kind of, like watched his girlfriend and my girlfriend have sex. And I helped, kind of like fluff them, like a fluffer. And, I would have had sex with his other girlfriend too, but when I had sex with his other girlfriend, he was like standing in the room in the corner angrily watching. So you can see how these fucking creep weirdo Maxine Gladwell, whatever. You can see these human trafficker motherfuckers over here. And so it never really happened. It would have happened. His other girlfriend told me, yeah, it's probably going to happen. Like obviously it's going to happen. But there was just some like weird jealousy issues, and I had those too, actually. You know, at one point I was telling my best friend and my roommate, I was like, because I was out of town, I was like, if you hook up with my pig, that's what I called her, my pig. She made a shirt too that said DVP, Din Venom's pig, because I changed my name to Din Venom, and my friend changed his name to Vin Denim. So we were Din Ven and Vin Den. Vin Den and Din Venom. Yeah, I was Din Venom, and he was Vin Denim. Vin Den and Din Ven. And so we called our girlfriends our pigs. And we called our family our meat. And we just had all these, you know, we called women critch or stink. You know, like how many stink were there? Oh, it was like 5 stink. And I was like, if you fuck my stink, you know, if you fuck my pig, we're done forever. And I was pretty jealous. But at other times, I was like, hey, check this out. Check out the horizon of my stink's butthole. Look at, because when you look at a horizon, you can't tell where the water, it's kind of pink. Like the horizon level is kind of, how the sky becomes pink. And if you look onto the water, you can't tell where the water begins and the sky begins. It kind of blurs in. I was like, so we called those kind of buttholes horizon buttholes, where it's like you can't tell where the butt skin ends and the internal intestine begins. It's like a gradual fade into pink. So I was like, look at into my pig's butthole, like spreading open my pig for my friend, like right in his face. I was like, look at the horizon on that. Isn't that just incredible? And so, and I loved her a lot. And, she wanted to have a baby actually. And, she was a stripper too. And she wanted to have a baby while working at the strip club. And, I was just like, I don't think so. Like if you got pregnant, I would definitely say to get an abortion. Like that would be terrible to get pregnant. Like that would be cruel actually. And I wouldn't, I wasn't unscrupulous. I wouldn't have gotten her pregnant to begin with. But anyways, so even when we had unprotected sex, I was like, I was monitoring her pill take. I was like making sure that she took her pill every single day on time. Otherwise it would never be worth it to me to raw dog my pig. And slowly, I don't really know if any particular event set me off, but I can remember, for example, walking through Walmart and my pig was like, I think these guys are following us. And they were an Asian couple and my pig was like 6'2". So, and she was like an Amazon, like she was like, she stood out. And, she went to the Walmart staff and she was like, these people are following us. Like, can you make them stop? And I was with her in Sweden as well. And I remember walking through the streets late at night and thinking, I think these people are following us. Like, I feel like I'm being followed. And I also had some issues with, I don't know, I didn't like my roommate's girlfriend. I felt like I called her Smother Hen. And my pig was basically cheating on me too much. And my dad told me, who I think may have who may have put me on the list, but I also think he may be targeting people who put me on the list. I actually think he might be like a gangstalker who hates other gangstalkers or something like that. But he told me that I'm not psychologically ready to be with a girl as hot as my pig. And I was like, yeah, maybe that's the truth. Like, this is the first, I had another pig that hot before and who also loved me and like, who really loved me. Like, it wasn't like, I was poor. Like we had a nice house. Like, I was basically taken care of. Like, my pig did webcamming and, it wasn't really me bringing in the bacon. And so, I had another pig like that where it wasn't just like a whoring thing. Like, oh, I'm so rich and so that's why you're my pig. And so anyways, my pig is like basically getting on my nerves all the time. And we're always fighting too. And that's the other thing. We're always fighting. And her friends are kind of weird. Like, we had this one dominatrix, this friend who is a dominatrix. And she comes over to our house, and my friend was there from the States visiting. And so he was going to get fucked in the ass by a hammer. This dominatrix was going to fuck him in the ass with a hammer and then hit him in the balls with the hammer. And so we, that's what happened. And, we videotaped it. I had a little turn too. I grabbed the hammer and I started gagging. It was actually really gross. And then, so one of her friends, he messages her, he texts her, and he's like, did you know that your boyfriend And this is like one of her gay ex-boyfriends, like a very like effeminate, like he watched all her YouTube videos and was commenting on everyone, and he's like, I love your music, and oh my god, and he's like, did you know that your boyfriend, and he was against me, like I one time said that I was gonna tattoo my dick black, and he's like, that's not gonna make it bigger, dude. And I was like, why would you even think that? Like, you know, like that's so stupid. Like, obviously tattooing your dick black is an artistic, you know, that's like fucking far out. And, you know, by the time you tattoo your dick black, it's not because you want a bigger dick, you know? But he has to take that opportunity to say, hey, dude, it's not gonna make it bigger, dude. Fucking damn fool. You know, the guy was such a little flimsy, he was a flimsy kind of scuzzy jerk, you know, like a really effeminate, passive jerk. And so anyways, he texts her, he's like, did you know that your boyfriend had a dominatrix over? And meanwhile, my pig was there. And I never thought anything of it, you know, but subliminally I did. Subliminally, it was going on in my mind that how does this random guy know that we had a dominatrix to our house? How does he know that she's a dominatrix? How does he know who she is? They're not in the same universe. These two people don't exist in the same universe. It never made me creeped out. But I told her, I was like, text him that I'm the best, or like text him to fuck off or something. And she did. But it was just kind of weird, you know? And she had those kind of friends who are just kind of like condescending towards me, or, you know, like I just didn't really like her friends. And one of them actually told me that he was part of the KGB and that his wife hates me. That was like her ex-best friend. It was pretty bizarre. And they accused me of pimping her out. But they said it on behalf of someone else in their little hick town. They're like, you know, such and such thinks that you're pimping her out. And I was like, oh, please, like, do you think that I have control over my pig? Like, do you really think that I'm like, okay, pig, you're gonna go fuck this guy and get some money, and then you're gonna give the money to me? My stripper pig, my model, she was on the Naked News. You know, which was, you know, that doesn't prove anything. That doesn't prove you're not pimping someone else. But, I mean, I didn't want her to do the Naked News. I was like, that's way beneath you. The girls on the Naked News are not nearly as hot. So, gangstalker alert. Pivot point for the soulless. And, you know, it was so ridiculous, you know? But that's the kind of thing that those hick town fucking retards say. You know what? And you know what it really is? That's the thing that they fantasize about. Anyways, so she's cheating on me. And, but the other thing too is I'm sort of cheating on her in a different way. And in a very indirect way, I'm always high. And it's kind of like my revenge, because she hates it when I get high. And so every time she upsets me, you know, I just go straight to, I wake up, I get baked. And when we first are together, I'm doing fucking university. You know, I'm not a drug person at all. And then we have this roommate who might be a gang stalker who moves in, and he lives in the basement, but he's really cool. He's from Newfoundland, but he's kind of a bitch too, you know, but he's nice, but he's kind of a bitch. And, you know, how's he a bitch? Like he makes plans with you and he doesn't answer the phone then. But then he's really nice. you know, kind of like, so here we have a one headlighter. Fucking gross ass. There's a gangstalker muffler. Anyways, so I'm always high. You know, I basically drop out of university. And you know, and I do webcamming too. We're like fucking having, we're doing sex shows. And her friends tell her parents, and her parents say that they're gonna watch our sex shows. And her dad was like talking about sniping gay guys at the dinner table. When we had family dinner time, he was making jokes, non-ironical jokes about how he'd like to snipe homos. Like, could you imagine like the type of guy who that's really his joke. He's like, yeah, I'd like to snipe those homos. And that's what he's saying at the dinner table. Like, could you imagine how, would you suspect that guy's a little bit gay? You know? And like, to use the internet at his house, he was like, I need to get your VPN, or, you know, some kind of thing like that lets you see all inside your computer. He's like, if you want to use the internet, I have to do a thorough check on your hard drive first. Oh, what do we have here? Looks like we have a little path. I haven't seen this before, but I'm definitely checking this out. And so her parents start freaking out. They're like, you're doing webcamming? And that's where they got the accusation that I was pimping her out. And we actually had this guy who solicited us for that. This was very strange. This guy said, he sent us a message, and he was like a multi-millionaire. And we actually had like a few of those kind of friends. And he said, I want you guys to come stay with me. And oh shit, there's a tent. Should I go through it? Hello, can I go by? Okay. Yeah, thank you. So anyways, what the hell? You know, this trail doesn't even go anywhere, or maybe it does. So, you know, that could be me in that fucking tent. You know, I have slept outside, or I've tried to at least. Slept in the bank. I'd go to a shelter, I think. I don't know. I tend to, maybe I'm fucking nuts, but I tend to think that I'm such a mama's boy that if I went to a shelter, I could make friends with people. And there's nothing I really care about that if it got stolen, I would even care. Like, ultimately, you know, I do have things I like, but there's nothing I really care about that much to begin with. Oh man, this is a nice trail. So her mom's like, I'm going to watch your shows. And it's just like bizarre as fuck. And then her and I, my pig and I, we kind of lose, you know, this is where she's with her new boyfriend. And she's kind of realizing that I'm not going to have a baby with her. You know, on some level, I think that's what it was. And she's with her new boyfriend, but she doesn't tell me. And he's long distance, and her and I are still living together. And so she keeps doing webcamming by herself. And she stays in a separate room, and you know, once in a while we have sex, and once in a while she'll say something really sweet, like, you can have me forever if you just don't be a fucking drug addict. And you know, I'm just like, yeah, I know, but, and there was something else about her and I that just never sat right with me, which was that she fucking, not that she cheated, but that she's the type of person who would cheat. And that's like a big hidden in plain sight type of thing. Like, you can forgive the act, but remember the type of person who does that act to begin with. You know, remember that. And so that kind of, you know, I'm not sure what it was. You know, if it was just that kind of sleaziness. But for whatever reason, I could just never feel that connected to her, even though I really loved her. You know, I really, really loved her. But just sometimes I just felt like there's just some kind of connection that we're missing. And anyways, so what else is there to say? So then she broke up with me, you know, and she went on vacation with her new boyfriend, and then I started to know, you know, and then my first love came back. I started talking to my first love, who I think was a gang stalker, and I think my ex-pig was a gang stalker too. And my first love, I thought, oh, this is the one I really want. Okay, this is the one I really want, and this is the one who really does get me. This is the one who I'm just, you know, my first choice. My pig was my runner-up, but this one is my first choice, and that's different. You know, this one really moves mountains, and the whole world transforms with this one. You know, and then slowly with that other one, with my first choice, she was kind of, you know, she was kind of arrogant. And at some point, I started to think, and I think she was a gang stalker too, I have to tell you that. At some point, you know, I thought, she's too arrogant. And I had never had sex with her either, so I never saw what her hips to waist ratio was. I knew she had wide hips, but maybe she didn't have a good ratio. But it didn't matter, you know. I was like, her face is hot enough. Her face looked like Alicia Vikander. Exactly, you know, she was a lot of people, I can guarantee you, a lot of people would have said, that's the hottest girl I've ever seen. A lot of people would have said that. She would have had a lot of people in her life who thought that. And, you know, that's what I thought. I thought you're easily the hottest person I've ever seen in my life. And the fact that you love me and I'm your first choice too, that just sent me over the fucking moon. At least that's what I thought. I thought I was her first choice too. But it never really happened, you know? And I theorized a lot about why that happened. That she was a gang stalker, that she was also in love with me, but she was trapped into her gang stalking role. Something like that. But here's what also happened. I came down off the high. So you get what you want, right? There's two things that will make you miserable in the world. Not getting what you want, and you know what that's like. But getting what you want, getting exactly right to the fucking nth degree, exactly what you want. And it's so beyond your wildest dreams. You just never thought it. You couldn't have imagined in a million years that you'd ever get that. And by the time you do, you feel transformed. You think, oh, I've reached enlightenment. I feel sorry for celebrities. I see the patheticness of celebrities, and they're so desperate, and they don't even have what I have. They have infinity pussy, infinity money, infinity drugs, but they don't have someone as hot as this. They don't have someone as hot as this. And they don't have this kind of connection either. They don't have this kind of love. They don't have this kind of spiritual relationship with someone, a relationship that goes even higher than friendship, higher than sex. They don't have a spiritual relationship with someone. They have no idea what they're missing. They're not transformed like I am. And so I was high as a fucking cloud. My ego was ripe. And suddenly, when her and I would fight, not get along, my ego would just crash, and then it'd be ripe, and then it would crash, and then it'd be ripe. And I could see the transience of my ego. And I kind of got over it somehow. I kind of came down, and I thought, it's not really that big a deal. This girl talking to me, it's not really that big of a deal. It doesn't really make me feel that much cooler. It doesn't really make me, you know, that much more special. It's no big deal at all. But then she left, and then I went way fucking down. I went like down to level negative 1,000,000. I thought, oh, it was a big deal. I just didn't know. And I thought, I'm going to look back on this and I'm going to say this was the best thing that I ever had in my life. I'm going to say I just lost the best thing that I ever had. I'm going to look back on this for the rest of my life and I'm going to say this is the best thing I ever had. And I sort of sabotaged it to some extent. Now you'll notice there's a gang stalker up here in a car. Fucking weirdo. They just turn their lights off. Okay, so, and the other thing though, you know, it could have been better. It could have been that we actually did love each other, but she was actually a gang stalker. And she had to be disrespectful, and I didn't understand what was happening, and I felt the disrespect. It was kind of talking down to me, kind of teasing me, you know, she was available online, but not in person. That's kind of cruel for like, you know, having an emotional relationship with someone but not having sex with them. That's kind of cruel. I said I was going to come visit her and she said that's not a good idea. And I said, well, just tell me not to and I won't. And she didn't tell me not to. So I think she may have had a boyfriend or a husband or something. I don't know. But afterwards, the feeling I had that I was spiritually elevated after I met her, or after you know, I had met her about a decade previous to that, but after I felt like I finally had her love and her validation, and I had felt like I had it a decade prior to that too, you know, but not as much. And so a few years after we stopped talking, which she came back when I was like 28. Then I started to have another spiritual experience where you know, because you have to have love first. There's like a hierarchy of needs, and spirituality is after love. Like the Buddha had one of the hottest girlfriends of all time. Like anyone who's enlightened, it always starts with them having a hot girlfriend. You know, even Jesus, he hung out with whores. So here's a gang stalker in the parking lot. And so you can't meditate if you're still trying to have a hot girlfriend. You know, the hot girlfriend comes first. You don't care about meditation. You only think of meditation because you think the girl might be attracted to you if you're spiritual. You know, you want the wisdom to be able to attract the girl. That's why you care about spirituality, but you don't actually care about spirituality. You just want to get the girl. And so after a few years after her and I stopped talking, I started to get the spirituality without the girl. I felt like I already had that. And even though we never had sex, I kind of felt like I could see the trajectory that even had we had sex, there would have came a point where I said, it's not enough. Eventually I need to eat you. Eventually I need to literally fry you in a fucking frying pan and consume you. I need to cannibalize you. Okay, I need more and more of you. Too much is never enough. Okay, eventually I saw that point, and I thought, if this isn't it, nothing is it. This is, you know, this has to be it. Because there's nothing more that can be added to this. So I've had the experience of love. I've had the spirituality that comes after love, where you ask, what is truth? And you can't ask, what is truth, if you're still focused on sex? And love is sex. Love means sex. You can't ask, what is truth, if you're still focused on sex? But after you're not focused on sex, after that need is actually satiated, and it's not, remember, you are not satiated. You do live in sex. I mean, at least I did, but probably you do too. No offense, but you know, this is the state of most people. You live in sex. That's where you're at. And so you can't imagine what it would be like to ask, what is truth? What is consciousness? Who am I? You can't imagine to ask that, because if you asked that, it would be a dishonest question, because you don't actually care. What you care about is sex. And so when I had that need met, then I could ask, what is truth? And the question was real, and that's how I found meditation. That's how I found spirituality. So my spiritual journey started around age 28, lasted till I was about 34, and then the fucking trauma of being gang stalked caught up with me, and I freaked out.